another good week of weight loss and another good week where my fat percentage went down at a rate, at such a rate that I know that I have not only preserved my lean body mass, I've grown a little bit. So even though officially I won't know what my fat percentage is for this week until 2 weeks from now, unofficially my body fat percentage right now is probably around 37.7, 37.8%. So seeing as how that's a full percentage point down from the last time I did progress pics, there's a new set of progress pics at the end of this video. So like I've said before, I credit my recent success at getting my fat percentage down to 3 changes. One being one I already talked about, the bringing in more carbs into the pre and post workout period. The other one to hypertrophy specific training, which I'll talk about next video when I have more time to go into it. And the third thing is supplementation. When I first started losing weight, I wanted to avoid all powders and pills. I wanted all my nutrition to come from food, from real food. But in thinking about how to improve my fat percentage, my view on that has changed a little bit. You know, in order to grow lean tissue, which is comprised of proteins, you have to eat food that is comprised of proteins. And I'm not a huge meat eater, not a vegetarian by any stretch of the imagination, but I'm not a huge meat eater, and I'm not a big fan of eggs. The maintenance level of protein daily should be between 0.8 of a gram and 1 gram per pound of lean body weight. In my case, I've got about 180 pounds of lean body mass, so I should be taking in, just to maintain, between 145 grams and 180 grams of protein. And I took a look at it a few weeks ago, and I estimated that I'd take in about that. But I also do strength training, and if you're doing that, then you have to increase your protein, or you're not doing yourself any good. Among many things that strength training does is it causes micro trauma to the muscle and to the tendons. Micro trauma, you can think of it as little tears in the fibers that get repaired, and when they get repaired stronger and larger. But they won't do that unless you are getting enough protein to, or they won't do it unless you're supplying the protein it needs to do it. That happens in about a 36-hour period after doing strength training. So I decided to add whey protein powder as a good way to add protein without having to, eat more in general. Which, I was already eating enough to be satisfied. Like I say, I've never been hungry, and I'm just not into stuffing myself silly. So, whey protein, it's got all the essential amino acids that you need, and you can get it in a form that doesn't have any carbohydrates in it. Now, I do take protein pre-workout, and that protein has carbs in it. Pre-workout, I drink this can of I think the brand I drink is BioX Protein Blast. I'm sure it's the same as every other brand. That one has got 50 grams of sugar and 30 grams of protein. The sugar, of course, I'm not in the habit of eating sugar, but sugar, or sucrose as it's really called, is nothing generates an insulin response quite like sucrose. In fact, sucrose, although I consider it to be one of the worst things you can put in your body, it's not the worst. The worst is probably fructose, which doesn't really generate the insulin response. It just gets basically stored as fat right away. But sucrose, if you give it the chance, it can be very anabolic. And by anabolic, I just simply mean that anabolism is your metabolism converting energy into mass. Now, you know, if it's not converting into muscles or tendons or other lean tissue, it's converting into fat. But if you drink it right before your workout, then you're using sugar in the way that it was intended to be used. And post-workout, I have a glass of 2% milk with 25 grams of whey protein. So that's 35 grams. So in total, I'm adding about 65 grams of protein just in the supplementation alone to the during a workout day. And then I have a bigger meal than normal after my workout, so that's even more. And then the next morning I'll have another glass of milk with protein powder, so that's another 35 grams. 25 grams of protein powder, 10 grams that's in the milk. So that is working for me so far. So I wanted to keep this video fairly short so that I could get my progress pics in there, so I think I will say good night. I will see you all next week. I hope you all have a great week. Okay, bye-bye. And I almost forgot, that's not the only supplement I'm taking. I started also taking omega-3 fatty acids. Fish oil, basically. I'm not a big fan of fish, and even if I was, the oceans are far too polluted to eat fish on a regular basis, in my opinion at least. So I do supplement with omega-3s. I've seen enough research. They do, it seems like every week they're discovering some great thing that omega-3s do. So I think it can't hurt. In terms of fat loss specifically, omega-3s help your liver oxidize fat. In other words, it helps it burn more fat more efficiently, which is excellent. So yeah, so I take one of those at breakfast, one of those at lunch, and one of those at supper, and so far so good with that as well. Okay, for real this time, have a good night. I'll see you next week. Okay, bye.
Put the needle back on the record. Let's do a double take.